The way Canadians move around big cities changing with the popularity of ride-hailing, the promise of autonomous vehicles. That said, the big cities haven't changed their views on parking development. Now that has implications for home building. Let's get some insight now on this from Murtaza Haider of the Ryerson Urban Analytics Institute. Good to see you again, Murtaza.
Pleasure.
This is a report that you authored, very interesting stuff in terms of, we hear that in the cities, if we want young people to be able to stay in the city and afford to live in the city, we need to rethink about the kind of homes we're building. You say parking is pretty essential in all this as well.
Yes, indeed. I mean, if you just focus on the core of the urban core where we usually build high rises, the cost of providing parking could be anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000 per unit. So if we were to look at ways to reduce that part of the construction cost, then this will ultimately flow to the owners and buyers. So yes, minimum parking requirements could end up being a deterrent to housing affordability, especially as it relates to the construction of new high-rise buildings.
Now you say this is an issue across the country, but specifically you're looking at Toronto, and I think it's been since like the mid '80s since they actually did any serious work on their parking regulations for builders.
So the city do consistently look into it, and they commission studies and whatnot. Getting it approved is another thing, but they do look into it, but there has not been a meaningful reduction. And then there are some other new challenges coming up our way. Like if you think about it, the future is autonomous vehicles. The future is ride-hailing and sharing of vehicles. What it means is that there may be fewer vehicles in total, but they will be moving a lot more. So there won't be lesser traffic on the roads. Actually, there'll be more because the cars will spend significantly less time being parked. And when they're spending less time being parked, they're on the road. And at the same time, with autonomous vehicles, not only that they can drive by themselves, they can park by themselves. So when they can park themselves, they don't have to be placed in the same way that we park our cars. So the space required for parking would also go down with autonomous future. So what we are saying in this report is to be mindful of the technological changes that are heading our way. Look at the future where people may own fewer cars, may not require as much parking. So one of the things that we are advocating is to have above-grade parking.
Yeah, this is one of the things that really caught my attention, because I can remember when Toronto was just a city of parking lots for the most part, everything went underground, and then when I thought of advocating above-ground parking, is there any place left for that?
Yes, so above-ground parking means that when you're constructing new buildings, you in fact build parking above grade rather than below grade. So my own building where I work, which is 55 Dundas West, there are 3 floors of above-grade parking, which you can't tell from outside because you think it's a 9-story tall building, but there are 3 floors dedicated to parking. The benefit of it is, and we illustrate through several examples where people have actually repurposed parking garages when they became redundant. So we are saying that even if you were to provide the same number of parking spots in new buildings that we have on the books for minimum standards, eventually we have to be prepared for the future that they may not be requiring as much parking as the building age to 10, 20, 30, 40 and more years. So for that to happen, you have to be mindful that the parking garages are designed in a way that they could be repurposed. Above-grade parking garages could be repurposed for residential, commercial. They have to be built slightly differently, but there's not much hope for redundant parking below ground.
Now, we know that when we talk about changing the way we view movement through a city and how driving is going to change, some people get their backs up. People love their cars. They talk about people being anti-car. I mean, is this a tough sort of issue to push to say, listen, the world is changing and we're not all going to be one person in one car moving around a big city like this?
So we are not arguing that there will be lesser vehicles in terms of vehicles being on the road. I think all the studies that I have seen in the past say that with autonomous vehicles, you will see cars traveling for more. For example, look at the taxi cab. A taxi cab spends much more time on the road traveling than it's being parked versus a car that is owned by persons like you and I. So for that to realize, we're not suggesting that there will be lesser cars. We're not suggesting to remove the infrastructure required for moving cars. We think that the infrastructure required for stationary vehicles will become redundant, gradually become redundant. Not all of it, but it would be required less over time.
All right, fascinating stuff. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
This is Murtaza Haider. He's with the Ryerson Urban Analytics Institute.